All right, strap in, everybody. We're diving deep into a story that sounds like, I don't know, a financial thriller,
Yeah.
We're talking Microsoft, Bitcoin, and a group of shareholders who are basically pushing this tech giant to do something completely unheard of in the
Yeah.
financial world.
Right.
So you sent us this article about a shareholder proposal that's really stirring things up, and
Yeah, it's a fascinating one.
yeah, let's just say it's juicy.
It really highlights how the world of finance is changing. I mean, it's happening right in front of us.
Absolutely.
And in this case, you've got this group, the National Center for Public Policy Research. It's a mouthful,
Right.
NCPPR for short.
Okay.
They're basically urging Microsoft to seriously consider Bitcoin as an investment.
And they're not talking about just dipping their toes in the water.
No.
They're talking about using a chunk of Microsoft's massive cash reserves.
Right. I mean, think about it. They are sitting on a mountain of cash. And you have to wonder, with all that cash just sitting there, is inflation quietly eating away at its value?
That's a good point.
And that's where the NCPPR sees Bitcoin as a potential solution, right?
Okay.
A hedge against inflation, something that could actually protect their wealth and potentially even grow it.
That makes sense. But didn't Microsoft already try this whole Bitcoin thing a while back?
They did, yeah.
Weren't they accepting Bitcoin for Xbox purchases for a few years?
Yep, from 2014 to 2018.
Right.
But then they kind of abruptly stopped,
Yeah.
Most likely because of Bitcoin. Well, price swings.
Yeah.
I mean, imagine trying to run a global business when the value of your currency is bouncing all over the place.
Talk about a logistical nightmare.
Right.
Yeah, I can see why a company like Microsoft, known for its stability, would be hesitant.
Yeah.
But on the other hand, you have companies like MicroStrategy going all in on Bitcoin and seeing massive gains.
Right. MicroStrategy is like the poster child for the high-risk, high-reward Bitcoin approach.
Right.
Basically converted a huge chunk of their reserves into Bitcoin.
Wow.
And their stock has been on a tear,
Eh.
even outperforming Microsoft at times.
So it's like we have these two completely different strategies playing out.
Yeah.
MicroStrategy is like a speedboat, just zipping through the waves of the crypto market.
Yeah.
And then you have Microsoft, this giant tanker, carefully navigating a well-charted course.
That's a great analogy.
And it really highlights the dilemma.
Yeah,
Right?
absolutely.
I mean, what does Microsoft do?
Yeah.
Do they stick with this traditional safe approach?
Right.
Or do they take a chance on this new asset class, this potential game changer?
And it's not just coming from some random group,
Right.
This is a well-respected organization.
The NCPPR.
Yeah, they've been around for decades.
Okay.
And they have a history of influencing corporate policy.
Yeah.
They're not just basing their arguments on hype either.
Okay.
They're pointing to real-world examples like MicroStrategy's success to make their case. Plus, they're tapping into this growing sentiment among investors.
Yeah.
More and more investors are seeing Bitcoin as a legitimate store of value.
That's true. It's not just an internal debate within Microsoft.
Exactly.
This is a microcosm of a much larger shift happening all over in the financial world. I mean, we're seeing more institutional investors, even pension funds, starting to put money into Bitcoin.
Absolutely.
So this brings us to another piece of the puzzle.
Okay.
The rise of Bitcoin ETFs.
Right.
These exchange-traded funds have made it a lot easier for institutions and potentially companies like Microsoft to get involved with Bitcoin.
Yeah.
Without actually having to, directly hold the cryptocurrency.
Much simpler.
Okay, I have to admit this whole ETF thing is a little fuzzy for me.
Okay.
Could you break it down? Like, how does a Bitcoin ETF actually work?
Sure. Think of a Bitcoin ETF like a basket of Bitcoin, but this basket is traded on a regular stock exchange. So instead of buying Bitcoin directly and figuring out how to store it securely, you're buying shares of this ETF, and the ETF tracks the price of Bitcoin.
So it's like buying a slice of Bitcoin pie without having to bake the whole thing myself.
Exactly.
Makes sense.
And that's a game changer for institutions and corporations who might be interested in Bitcoin,
Right.
but they don't want to deal with the technical and regulatory hurdles of directly owning it.
Yeah, that sounds like a headache.
Right. ETFs just make it so much simpler.
So these ETFs are becoming more common, which basically means it's easier for a company like Microsoft to get involved with Bitcoin.
Exactly.
They wouldn't have to go all in like MicroStrategy, right?
Real.
They could start smaller, maybe with an ETF, and see how it plays out.
Right. Test the waters a bit.
So we have this clash between old school finance and this new Bitcoin wave.
Absolutely.
And it brings us to a crucial question. What does this mean for Microsoft right now?
Yeah.
I mean, their board is recommending a no vote on this proposal.
Right, that's where the tension lies, Yeah.
Microsoft is known for its careful strategic decisions.
Yeah.
But this situation is forcing them to face a new reality where the old rules might not apply anymore.
It's not just about the money either.
Right.
What about the public perception?
Yeah.
I mean, how would their customers, their partners, even their own employees react if Microsoft suddenly became a big player in Bitcoin?
That's a great point. There's still a lot of uncertainty, even skepticism, about Bitcoin.
Yeah.
Microsoft has to weigh the potential benefits against the risks to their brand and reputation.
It's a fascinating problem.
It is.
And it's happening on a global stage with a company that could potentially influence entire industries.
Absolutely.
So just to recap, we've got this shareholder proposal pushing for Microsoft to embrace Bitcoin.
Yeah.
We've got the MicroStrategy example showing what's possible.
Okay.
And we've got these new ETFs that make it easier than ever to get involved.
It's all coming together.
It really is. So what will they do?
Yeah, that's the million-dollar question. Will they stick with tradition, or will they take this leap into the unknown?
That's what we'll explore next, all the different scenarios and
Yeah.
what they could mean for Microsoft's future.
Sounds good. Let's take a quick break, and we'll be right back.
Let's imagine, Microsoft's at this crossroads.
Okay.
Each path is a potential response to this whole Bitcoin situation.
Right.
The first path, like the most cautious one, is to just say no.
Yeah.
Reject the proposal, stick with what they're doing.
That seems like the safest bet, right?
It probably is, especially with their board already recommending a no vote.
Yeah.
But, you have to wonder,
Okay.
wouldn't that be a missed opportunity, especially if Bitcoin keeps going up?
Yeah, that's true.
And remember, even if they completely reject it,
Yeah,
this whole thing has brought Bitcoin into the conversation.
that's true.
It's like planting a seed.
Right.
It's on their radar now.
Okay.
And the pressure from shareholders, it's not going away.
So they might just be delaying the inevitable instead of avoiding it completely.
Right.
So what about a middle ground?
Okay.
Is there a way they could, test the waters without jumping all the way in?
Absolutely. That's our second path.
Okay.
A more measured approach.
All right.
Microsoft could explore investing a small amount, maybe in a Bitcoin ETF.
That seems like a good balance, right?
Yeah,
Between innovation and their, traditional cautious approach.
it is.
They could learn about the market, get a feel for things,
Yeah,
potentially benefit if the price goes up.
right. And it would appease those shareholders who want Bitcoin exposure
Right.
without making this huge commitment they can't reverse.
It's a way to show they're not dismissing Bitcoin completely
Exactly.
while still being careful.
Exactly.
Plus, wouldn't investing in a regulated Bitcoin ETF be seen as less risky
Oh, yeah,
than, directly holding Bitcoin?
definitely.
It's like dipping their toes in the pool
It is.
instead of doing a cannonball.
Right.
Okay, so we have the no option, and we have this ETF middle ground.
Mm-hmm.
But there's one more path, right?
Yeah, they're in.
The one where Microsoft just goes for it,
That's right.
fully embraces Bitcoin.
Imagine a significant investment in Bitcoin.
Wow,
Maybe even holding it directly.
that would be huge.
It would send shockwaves through the financial world.
Can you imagine the headlines?
Microsoft bets big on Bitcoin.
It would be a massive validation of Bitcoin,
It would.
and other companies might follow.
Absolutely.
But it's a big risk.
It is, no doubt about it.
I mean, Bitcoin's volatility is, well,
Yeah, it's famous for a reason.
a big price drop could mean huge losses.
That's the risk.
Wouldn't that open them up to criticism too?
Oh, for sure.
People would say they're straying too far from their core business.
They would.
Some might see it as a gamble.
Yeah, one that could jeopardize their whole reputation.
It's a high-stakes game.
It is.
Huge rewards,
Absolutely.
but also huge risks.
They have to really assess Bitcoin's long-term potential and how much risk they're willing to take.
Okay, so those are the three paths.
Yep. Reject, explore, or go all in.
Each one has its own set of potential outcomes.
From playing it safe
Yeah.
to total disruption.
But let's step back for a second.
Okay.
Look at the bigger picture.
All right.
What does all this mean for, Bitcoin adoption in general?
That's where things get really interesting.
How so?
Microsoft's decision, it could have a ripple effect
Really?
throughout the entire tech industry, maybe even beyond.
It's like they're at the edge of the pool.
Yeah.
And if they jump in, everyone else might follow.
Right. Or if they stay out, everyone else gets hesitant.
Interesting.
Their actions could send a signal, you know?
About Bitcoin.
Yeah. Is it acceptable or is it too risky?
That's a lot of pressure.
It is. But that's what happens when you're a leader.
So if they embrace Bitcoin, even a little,
It could open the door for other companies,
yeah,
change the way people see it.
not just an investment, but an asset.
Exactly.
And that could lead to more companies putting money into Bitcoin.
Right, driving up demand and maybe the price.
Wow.
It could even lead to more innovation, you know?
Within the Bitcoin ecosystem.
Yeah, kind of snowball effect.
Bringing it into the mainstream.
That's right.
But what if they just say no?
Okay.
Does that mean this whole idea of corporate Bitcoin adoption is over?
Not necessarily. Don't forget shareholder activism.
Right.
It's a powerful force.
Yeah.
And the pressure to consider Bitcoin is only going to grow.
Especially with more success stories like MicroStrategy.
Exactly.
So maybe another company will take that leap.
It's possible.
Maybe not Microsoft.
And remember the ETFs.
Right.
Even if companies are hesitant about holding Bitcoin directly,
Yeah.
ETFs make it easier and safer.
So it seems like this whole thing is gaining momentum,
It is.
no matter what Microsoft does.
It's really fascinating to watch.
It is. This tension between the old ways and the new, risk versus reward.
Playing out on a global scale.
Yeah.
And it could change everything about finance.
Okay, so we've gone through all the possible scenarios
We have.
and the big picture implications.
Right.
But let's focus on the here and now.
All right.
What are the immediate consequences for Microsoft?
That's a great question. It all depends on what they do.
So let's look at each possibility
Let's break it down.
and how it could affect their bottom line, their reputation, their future.
It's a lot to consider.
Okay, so we've walked through all the paths Microsoft could take
Yeah.
and how their decision could impact, the whole corporate world.
Right.
But let's get down to brass tacks.
Okay.
What are the consequences for Microsoft right now?
Well, if they just straight up reject this proposal,
Yeah,
they risk alienating some of their shareholders.
the ones who are excited about Bitcoin.
Exactly. The ones who see it as a real opportunity.
Especially if Bitcoin keeps doing well.
Right. It'd be like watching a rocket take off.
Yeah.
While you're stuck on the ground.
Those shareholders might start to question things.
Yeah, the board's vision,
Okay.
their commitment to, trying new things in finance.
So ignoring Bitcoin might not be as risk-free as it seems.
Exactly.
Okay, what about the middle ground?
All right.
Microsoft dips their toes in with an ETF.
Even a small investment could create a lot of buzz.
Really?
It would signal to the market that they're open to Bitcoin.
Okay.
Might even attract new investors.
The ones who are excited about crypto.
Exactly.
But wouldn't it also bring criticism?
Oh, for sure.
People who think Bitcoin is too volatile?
Yeah. Too risky for a company like Microsoft.
Right.
They might say it hurts their reputation.
Makes them look unstable.
To their partners, their
Right.
customers, yeah.
So even a cautious approach has its downsides.
It does.
Okay, let's talk about the bold scenario.
Be all in.
What happens if Microsoft goes all in on Bitcoin?
That's the one with the highest potential upside
Okay.
and the highest potential downside.
If Bitcoin keeps going up,
They could see huge returns.
boost their stock price.
What? Strengthen their financial position.
A big win for the shareholders pushing for this.
Yeah, and it would solidify their image as innovators.
But if Bitcoin crashes,
Then they're facing substantial losses.
and a lot of criticism,
People will say they were reckless.
yeah,
A major hit to their reputation.
it could shake investor confidence.
Absolutely.
And we can't forget about regulations.
Right. The rules around Bitcoin are still changing.
Always a risk that something new could impact their investment.
That's part of the game.
So no matter what they do,
There are consequences.
it could affect their finances, their image, their future.
It's a complex decision.
This has been a fascinating deep dive.
It has.
It really feels like we're at a turning point.
In the world of finance, definitely.
So any final thoughts for our listeners?
No matter what Microsoft does,
Yeah.
the fact that we're even having this conversation,
About Bitcoin.
yeah, it shows how far Bitcoin has come.
It's not on the fringes anymore.
Not at all. It's a force to be reckoned with.
And it's making everyone rethink things.
Even the biggest companies.
So the question isn't if Bitcoin will disrupt things,
The question is how.
and how will each of us navigate this new world?
As investors, as observers, it's up to us.
That's a great point to end on.
Thanks for having us.
The future of finance is being rewritten right now.
It is.
We all need to stay informed and adapt.
Absolutely.
Thanks for joining us on this deep dive into Microsoft and Bitcoin.
It's been a pleasure.
Until next time, keep exploring, keep questioning.
And keep diving deep.
We'll see you then.